Writing this script, it's hard to imagine that this show was announced so long ago that I was watching the weekly Let's Plays in Minecraft as they were being made from Achievement Hunter. Safe to say, I've been watching this company for a long time. Too long, some might even say. But we're not here to talk about Rooster Teeth, Achievement Hunter, or anything like that. No, we're focusing on one of their longest running series, RWBY. Watching the trailers as they were released, I've been with RWBY from the start. And though I was in and out of watching the series as a whole, it's safe to say that I was able to witness both the highs and lows of the series and fandom. With Volume 10 still only in the early workings, now might be the best time to get caught up before things get going again. Just a few ground rules before we get going. 1. At least for the first few volumes, RWBY would split short episodes into 2 parts. In fact, Volume 1 could be watched in under 2 hours, basically the length of an ordinary movie. So for those episodes in terms of ranking, I just combined them into 1 episode. You'll know when they come up. I'm going to be giving the earlier volumes a bit of a longer leash for reasons that I'll get into as they arise. I know why you're here. You know why you're here. Let's get started before this intro gets too long. Here's all of RWBY Volume 1, ranked and reviewed. Volume 1, Episode 1, Ruby Rose. Right off the bat, we get a narration courtesy of the one and only Jen Taylor. The narration paints the picture of the world of Remnant, summarizing humanity's battle with Grimm, their near extinction, ability to grow, but ultimately a threat that still continues to the modern day. Episode 1 begins with animation that has really not aged that well at all. I feel it's a cheap shot to take at the early episodes, considering to this point, Rooster Teeth had maybe 35 people total employed. Not to mention the early episodes were pretty much done by Montiome and Shame Nouveau by themselves. Low-hanging fruit, and as such, I'll do my best not to mention it. Interestingly enough, the first person we see in the RWBY universe is not RWBY herself, but Rowan Torchwick, where, if you can't tell, is heavily inspired by the story of Clockwork Orange. Hey guys, this is Slight, dubbing this in after the recording and while I'm already in the editing process. For some reason, I call him Rowan Torchwick. It's Roman Torchwick with an M, not a W. I don't know why I started calling him Rowan Torchwick instead of Roman, but it's gonna happen from now until the end of the video at least. So whenever you see little PNG of Mochizo here, that will mean I'm making an editor's note. I don't know if I'm gonna be doing it the rest of the video, but I just wanted to clear that up. Back to the main video. And you can tell he's a bad guy, because he's got identical henchmen with 2013 YouTube voice actors doing his bidding. But it's as we see this group of rough and tough thugs robbing Old Man Jenkins, where we meet our lead character. You can tell she's a lead character because no unimportant characters in the show have any color to them. This is when you get a taste of what really helps make this show, with a brief fight scene between RWBY and the Goonies, starting off with an introduction to the incredible soundtrack of Casey Lee Williams and Jeff Williams. I'm typing as I rewatch this, but from what I can remember, there isn't a single song from these two in the soundtrack that is anything less than amazing. The fight between RWBY and Rowan is, well, not really a fight, but that'll come later. We have more important things to do, like giving Glinda her first appearance. We also get another glimpse of somebody very, very important, and she's so important and powerful that they can only show her cleavage. Following a brief exchange between Mystery Boobage and Glinda, RWBY is sent to Alcatraz, where she's brainwashed into eating chocolate chip cookies until she dies from a theobromine overdose. But in the midst of her gruesome death, we're introduced to the real main character of this show, Professor Ozpin, whose Ozzy Osbourne glasses allow him to see the talent that RWBY has, and forego any counsel or discussion with the school body in order to exonerate RWBY from her execution, and instead sentence her to an even worse fate, having to go to public school. We're introduced to Yang, RWBY's sister, who for some reason both have different last names. There's actually a reason, but that's called foreshadowing. Yang's outgoing personality is a clear opposite to her sister's, radiating her cool big sister energy almost as much as she radiates her tit. The concerns that RWBY has of being bumped ahead in her school career are interrupted by the racism subplot of the series, focusing on faunus rights, animal-human hybrids that probably spawned a brand new generation of furries. For only about a 10-minute runtime, episode 1 has managed to introduce 15 different plot threads that will take only about 13 years to play out. And speaking of different plot threads, we're introduced to John, kickstarting the story thread of being the worst male character ever to grace my computer screen. We end episode 1 with John vomiting on Yang's shoes just as he vomited on the joy I had watching this. A decent start, especially when you learn about all the crazy stuff that was spawned from this episode alone. Good enough to begin. B tier. Volume 1, Episode 2, The Shining Beacon. John ruins my day again by showing his fuck-ass presence as the students arrive at Beacon Academy. RWBY does this weird-ass chibi thing and ruins the ranking of this episode. She swoons over students' weapons like a total nerd, and probably provided the beta version of Deku's obsession with quirks to Horikoshi. After Yang tells her sister to fuck off at the idea of spending time with her, RWBY rightfully sits her dumbass down because the best character ever manifested on this planet arrives just in time to yell out RWBY's poverty-ridden bloodline. This is Weiss Schnee, daughter of the Schnee Dust Company, which, if you didn't catch, is a very powerful substance. She flexes her Weiss privilege so much that she fucks up the contrast on my monitor. RWBY is too nice to tell Weiss to shut up, so she just fucking kills her instead. This brings in the alley cat, Blake Bella Schlanga, to return some of Weiss's chili powder cocaine while reminding her of the pledge she made to the DARE program in the 3rd grade to never touch drugs. RWBY is dropped faster by the cool kids so hard their footsteps don't even match their walk cycle. As if her day can't get any worse, she's subjected to prolonged conversation with John. The two bond over being such disappointments that not even the soulless black voids want to go anywhere near them. And we get our first hints of Jean not really belonging at Beacon. After the stains on the family names get lost, they eventually find their way to the opening ceremony. RWBY finds Yang and runs hell away from John as fast as possible, while also giving a sneak preview at Pyrrha, who somehow in a crowd of candy-colored characters still manages to look like a custom character in a GTA cutscene. RWBY gets yelled at by Weiss again, clears some legal red tape, and tells RWBY that she'll be executed if she ever comes within 10 feet of her again. The students are told about the upcoming Fortnite Battle Royale that's on the horizon, and we cut to RWBY and Yang with some sisterly banter about being horny for your classmates. Ever the hipster, Blake lights some candles to catch up on her booktop porn addiction, leading to RWBY and Yang trying to spark conversation with a brick wall before RWBY shares her insights about the hockey player sex book that Blake is enjoying.
What's it about? It's about a man with 2 souls, each fighting for control over his body.
Yeah. Like that's ever gonna happen.
But just when it seems like RWBY is actually making some progress, Weiss comes over to remind the Poors of where they stand. This one is a bit of setup with character introductions and personalities being built, but it wasn't too bad a ride. I'm still docking it for the chibi thing though. C tier. Volume 1, Episode 3, The First Step. We're introduced to some of the other students entering Beacon, being the duo of Nora Valkyrie and Lee Ren, the latter being voiced by Monty Ohm himself. Nora manages to talk her way through some exposition and really show off Lee's patience. With teams being chosen today, there's plenty of chatter about who wants to partner with who. RWBY wants to partner with Yang, but Yang thinks she should break out of her shell. Weiss wants to partner with Pyrrha because of their reputations. John wants to put his partner in anything that moves.
Pyrrha, a little help, please?
Even Pyrrha's spear wants John off screen as quickly as possible. Now on the edge of a cliff, the students are informed of the fact that they won't be choosing their partners, but instead will be dropped into hell in a cell, with the first person they make eye contact with being assigned as their teammates through the remainder of their time at Beacon, which I'm very sure will be a very, very long time and nothing bad will happen to the school, faculty, or students of Beacon ever. Ozpin commits his first of many, many war crimes, flinging a group of his students off of a cliff, left to their own devices as to how they'll land, fight, and survive this first test. RWBY lands with a clear intent to find Yang, and to much surprise, she doesn't. She runs into Weiss, who very quickly unruns into RWBY. But after weighing her options between RWBY and John, there is a clear winner.
By no means does this make us friends.
You came back!
It is interesting rewatching this all these years later, finding all the inside jokes that only fans of Rooster Teeth or Achievement Hunter would find humorous, such as the "That's my uncle" line from RWBY in episode 1, or the chibis and RWBY's thoughts being in the same art style as the Rooster Teeth animated adventures. I don't really remember how many more there are in future episodes, but I'll be pointing them out if I come across any. Anyway, John and Pyrrha become a team. Weiss and RWBY already struggle getting on the same page, and Weiss finds herself surrounded by a bunch of icky, stinky monsters before the screen cuts to black. The episode is pretty enjoyable now that we're actually starting to move the plot along instead of just having characters banter with each other. I know it can't be full throttle right off the bat, no matter how much I want it to be. So I'll give this one a B tier. Volume 1, Episode 4, The Emerald Forest. We open with Yang trekking through the forest, running into a pack of Grimm Beowulf. Of all the things in the series that I'll inevitably praise and criticize, I think the Grimm are by far one of the better things about RWBY. There are so many different types that the show brings from time to time, with all of them being so unique. In time, maybe I'll do a Grimm tier list as well, but that's far in the future. Back to the show, Yang busts out the fire gauntlets when the Beowulf give her an impromptu haircut, and getting her so pissed that her punches have the Halo 3 shotgun audio whenever they land. But after enough showboating, Blake puts the beast out of its misery, marking the two as teammates, which is all they'll ever be for the rest of time, I promise. Cut back to Weiss, who's having a marginally less enjoyable time fighting off her pack of angry puppies. RWBY and she run into a battle trope of being so out of sync that they're trying to deep fry each other. Only 4 episodes in, and the married husband and wife are already going through their first big fight. You hate to see it. Pyrrha and John give us a small exposition dump about Aura. It's something to do with your soul, and it gives them powers, or something like that. I never really understood it. Maybe I'll head down to the local library and rent a book of The World of Remnant, a YouTube series made to explain the lore that is not really explored throughout the series. Aura is the manifestations of a person's soul, and can act as their shield in combat. Their semblance is their aura manifest, and every semblance is completely unique. With such a large cast being introduced in the first volume, surely we'll have so many different semblances to explore and use throughout the entire run. Surely they won't just be a bunch of one-offs. That'd be crazy. Anyway, back to me having to deal with John still being alive. He has his aura unlocked by Pyrrha, whatever that means. Quick update, all the teams have now been formed. Weiss and RWBY.
You're a big, stupid
Yang with Blake. Lee Ren with Nora. Pyrrha with dead weight. And unnamed characters left to starve to death, never to be seen again nor reported missing. The married couple get lost and keep bickering. Yang and Blake are now the first ones to find their chess piece. Pyrrha and Deadweight find a cave, and somehow Deadweight manages to decrease his value by simply existing. Turns out, he didn't find the relic, but woke up a sleeping grim Deathstalker. Clearly the Deathstalker is an audience insert, as it gets rid of Jean as soon as it physically can. The episode ends with Jean falling out of the sky towards Yang and Blake. Psych, it's actually RWBY. How'd that happen? How about you have some patience and wait a damn minute? Overall, though I criticized this episode a lot, it was pretty important in terms of development of characters and story. We have our teams that are basically set for the rest of the series, and we get our setup for the next episode fight soon too. Beat tier again. Volume 1, Episode 5, Players and Pieces. So when I said I would tell you how RWBY got into that situation, yeah, I lied. They were on a bird for some reason, and that's just something that regularly happens, I suppose. But John hits RWBY midair, causing their bodies to turn into a graphic, bloody scene that left Yang and Blake traumatized for the rest of their lives. Actually, it somehow breaks their fall, and the rest of the party comes rolling in, quite literally, with Lee Ren and Nora cowboy riding a Grim into the ruins. Weiss falls in, cushioned by Jean, who has died for the 12th time this volume, and Pyrrha brings the Deathstalker to the gathering. But with all 8 hunters and huntresses, they may just have what it takes to take down both the Deathstalker and the Nevermore. I like the Nevermore. They're really cool. I don't know what it is, but big bird monsters are really fascinating to me. Like Rodan in Godzilla, or the Thunderbird from American folklore. If you want me to get hooked to your story, put a giant-ass bird in it. Now comes the trope of, our fighting styles are out of sync, but if we get along, they'll mesh. RWBY almost gets the show canceled after 5 episodes, but Weiss swoops in to save her. The married couple finally clear the air, and the Deathstalker is kind enough to not try and break out while they make out. Make up. Jokes on hold, the fight scene that follows is pretty impressive. As I said, RWBY at this point was being made on a budget of popsicle sticks and Monty Ohm's lack of a sleep schedule. I still find each of the fighting styles unique for the main 8. The soundtrack kicks in too, which means it's time to really reach the climax. RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang are separated, taking on the Nevermore, while John, Nora, Pyrrha, and Ren take on the Deathstalker, finally killing it by cutting the stinger off and having it impale its body. But not before Nora can start aura farming midway. Meanwhile, the other fearsome foursome trap the Nevermore, launching RWBY up a mountain, propelled by Halo weapons sound files, using Crescent Rose to cut the Nevermore's head clean off. RWBY also starts aura farming, but she's the title character, so I can give it a pass. These guys make such a good team. If only there was an easier way to refer to the 4 of them at one time.
Well, that was a thing.
I'm ducking you a letter grade for that. After authorities finally found the missing bodies of the students Ozpin sent to die, they hold a memorial service, rewarding all the students who survived their teammates, with each being given team names. John, Pyrrha, Nora, and Ren make up Team Juniper, with John being named the team leader? Ozpin straight up sent school kids to die in the wilderness, and somehow this is a more baffling decision. Then the final 4 are pulled up, and we're given the name we've been waiting for. RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang make up Team Yerbo. Oh, wait, shit.
Blake Belladonna, RWBY Rose, Weiss Schnee, and Yang Xiao Long. From this day forward, you will work together as Team RWBY, led by RWBY Rose.
The ceremony concludes, and ominously, we're taken back to A Clockwork Orange, revealing that we truly haven't seen the last of Mr. Roman Torchwick, who's just gotten his mittens on a whole lot of dust. I went back into the show trying to keep low expectations, since the last I watched Volume 1 was 10 years ago, but I really enjoyed this episode. It's the fighting and action that are really RWBY's bread and butter. I'm cautiously optimistic for the remainder of the season. I can't quite put this into S tier just yet. It's a good episode, but it isn't really one that defines the series. I know there are much better episodes out there, so I'll need to wait and see. For now, the highest of A tiers. Volume 1, Episode 6, The Badge and the Burden. Today's adventure starts as any high-paced action series does, by decorating the dorm room. It's the first full day of the teams all sleeping together. In the same room, I mean. The other meaning comes later. They hit the sick cleaning montage, hanging posters, making beds, trying to prevent their friends from knowing they read Colleen Hoover, the whole nine. Also, nice Achievement Hunter poster back there, Yang. And just as they were about to finish up, we get the second making of what makes a good adventure anime. Worrying about your class schedule.
Now, we have a few classes together today. At 9, we've got to be...
What?
The hell kind of school starts class at 9 a.m.? Speaking of hell, Ryan Haywood is here, voicing the character of Professor Peter Port, and he manages to kill about 5 minutes of runtime almost as easily as he killed his career. Weiss gets fed up with this episode not going anywhere and is so angry that her clothes magically change. She even kills a Grimm right in the middle of class. The married couple start bickering again because all the goodwill that RWBY built up apparently was slept right off. Weiss tears into RWBY, pissed that she was named the team leader by Ozpin, which is a huge oversight to be honest. She should have looked at the title of the show before this. It's pretty obvious as who the main character was gonna be. Port calls her a stinky dum-dum head, saying she's a whiny rich girl with daddy issues. Maybe not that last part, but it was implied. Ozpin gives RWBY a bit of a pep talk too, with both students being given lessons in patience. Weiss slips into the dorm when everyone else is sleeping to try and make it up to RWBY.
I was studying and then I fell asleep. I'm sorry.
See? I told you it would come later. Just like them, heyo! If it seems I really didn't stop to pick anything apart this episode, that's because nothing really happened. Honestly, this episode probably didn't even need to exist, since the married couple keep bickering like this day in and day out for at least a few more volumes. Pretty forgettable. My least favorite episode by far. F tier. Volume 1, Episode 7. Jaundice. Oh, yay, a John episode. In a training battle with Cardin, Poo Poo Pants John gets dunked on and embarrassed. Though, if it resulted in Glinda talking to me like that, I'd throw every match I ever fought in. While eating lunch, Team Cardinal is making it known that we aren't supposed to like them by being what'd be considered overtly racist in the RWBY world to a bunny. And I know we're supposed to be rooting for John here, but the way Corden fucks with him is actually pretty hilarious. I can imagine a group of writers giggling as they come up with John getting shoved in a locker and launched in orbit. Alright, I said I wouldn't pick on the animation too much, but seeing Velvet's ear clipping through Corden's hand is kind of hard to ignore. Speaking of hard to ignore, Professor Oobleck, voiced by Joel Heyman, is a walking exposition machine. No wonder he was used to do voiceover work for the world of Remnant after Jen Taylor was set to be the voice at Salem.
Pyrrha, I know I'm going through a hard time right now, but I'm not that depressed.
The question of John being capable of getting into Beacon is finally answered, as he admits to Pyrrha that he forged his transcripts. He's quite literally the nobody lined up against Olympic athletes. He doesn't deserve a spot in Beacon, at least in his eyes, if he doesn't pave his own path and take the help of others. But silly John, you were out here getting depth for your character and making you more likable, but Cardin was listening this whole time. And now he's got the blackmail to end all blackmail on his hands. But instead of ratting out John, Cardin just uses it to make John his pack mule, forcing him to do whatever he asks. Alright, so I still can't stand John, but this episode kind of makes me take the boot off his neck a bit. He's still a lame duck, but adding a relatable backstory of wanting to stand up for yourself instead of needing to rely on others, even when it's pretty clear that it's leaning into the learn to lean on others trope, is a good one that fits for him. Still not a big fan of the teacher characters of Porter Oobleck, simply because it feels like they don't really add much other than a device for moving the plot along. There's not much substance behind them being there. B tier episode. Volume 1, Episode 8, Forever Fall. This episode continues John's character arc, picking up after a bit of a time skip where John's fraternizations with Cardin have made him unavailable to his friends and team. He gets caught by RWBY trying to sneak away from his dorm and is given a leader-to-leader pep talk. RWBY tries to lift John's spirits and remind him that being a leader means other people depend on him, so living for himself isn't an option anymore. I'm not even sure how his teammates can't hear him through that door. Thing must be made out of several inches of steel. Cardin's tasks are beginning to get wilder and wilder, going from just using him to get homework done to now making him a willing participant in his pranks. This is just before the gang is led out to a forest named the Forever Fall to run some tasks for the school, collecting honey from the trees in the forest. I really like the settings in RWBY. We're given this forest that's not seen again in the entire series for a one-off, and it's really interesting. A forest that's eternally in autumn. Something just unique enough for you to be curious about, but for a single use, also makes sense that they don't dive too far into it. Cardin finally pushes John too far, however, as he intends to get revenge on Pyrrha for showing him up in class by having her be attacked by wasps using the sap collected, both of which forcibly done by John. But John putting his foot down by throwing the sap at Cardin instead of Pyrrha results in the expected, with all of Team Cardinal taking turns mollywopping him. It wouldn't last long, as John's aura activates at the perfect time to stall Carden a few moments, and the sap he didn't bother cleaning up attracts an Ursa from the woods, and it has Carden in his sights. The rest of the team abandon ship, leaving Carden to be bear food until John finally gains the last required amount of character development and is able to fight the Ursa on his own. Kind of. Pyrrha has her semblance revealed to be polarity, and uses it to allow John to defend himself just enough to take down the Ursula. Having saved Carden's life, John is finally free from his grasp. He makes up with Pyrrha and takes her up on her offer to have her train him. I bullied John a lot, and I'll continue to bully John. I can't really stand him when he's being goofy, useless, and idiotic, but when he's given more attention to be a serious character with serious storylines, he's a lot more enjoyable. Still not high up in ranking for me, but I don't get miserable from seeing him on screen. I enjoyed this episode a lot more than I remembered on first viewing, and it was satisfying to watch his growth, even if it happened in a short amount of time. I'll give this episode an A tier. We're still looking for our first S tier ranking, but it's a mystery as to when that'll come. Volume 1, Episode 9, The Stray. Expecting the students arriving for the Vital Festival by ship, Weiss wants to get a little espionage done, and in the process, they notice another death shop has been knocked over. Bernie Burns and Joel Heyman act as police officers, dropping a little exposition nugget about the White Fang for Weiss to pick up on. And oh boy, does she pick up on it. She and Blake, who is definitely a human, go back and forth about their opinions on the White Fang, bouncing opinions back and forth much like your average Twitter thread. The funny thing is, RWBY straight up suggests the possibility of the robbery was done by Torchwick, the dude who we saw in the first episode and the end of episode 4, but Weiss circles the conversation back to shitting on the White Fang. This girl is dead set on everyone knowing how much she hates them. You gotta respect the hater hustle. The emphasis she puts on the F in Faunus makes it sound like she was one TV rating away from inventing a new slur.
Those Faunus only know how to lie, cheat, and steal.
But before social media can snap a screenshot for their call-out post, they get interrupted by a monkey Faunus making a ruckus on the boat that just arrived. And oh baby, just look at those crisp run cycles. As the boy runs from the cops, he shoots a wink at Blake that will send a nuke directly to every Bumblebee shipper's favorite fanfiction. As Team RWBY is starting to gain on Monkey Boy, Weiss gets isekai'd by a truck, letting the Monkey Boy get away. Weiss goes to stand up to see who she ran into, and Penny, oh my god, it's Penny! Oh my god, hi, Penny! Oh my god! I don't care what happens to RWBY from this point on. Any rise and fall in quality, I'm strapped in for the long haul, because of this creature. I adore Penny so much. Her clunky way of speaking, her design, her friendship that she has with RWBY. The fact that she's definitely not a robot. It's fitting that in an episode that's a thinly veiled parallel to racism, we get to meet Penny. Of all the clankers out there, Penny is truly one of the good ones. And speaking of racism, Weiss has to stop herself from saying more slurs in the following 2 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating, she only stops when Blake gives her a glare.
Monkey-tailed rapscallion?
Stop calling him a rapscallion. Stop calling him a degenerate.
Would you like me to stop referring to the trash can as a trash can? Or this lamppost as a lamppost?
Nobody is making her say this. It's entirely unprompted. Weiss got activated like a sleeper cell and is now talking as if she got transported into a Modern Warfare 2 lobby. Her debate club practice with Blake continues all the way into the night, with Weiss giving insights into her hatred of the White Fang and the Faunus. Her family has been targeted by attacks and thefts and other crimes. That's when Blake finally lets the cat out of the bag.
You want to know why I despise the White Fang? It's because they're a bunch of liars, thieves, and murderers.
Well, maybe we were just tired of being pushed around.
Get it? Cat out of the bag. Become a channel member now. That way you have early access to hearing solid gold scripts like this. Blake hauls ass out of there, finally having no reason to keep her bow on to hide her cat ears anymore. But as soon as she does, a familiar voice catches her attention. A few days pass, with her teammates unsure of where she is, and Weiss seemingly having no concern in the slightest about her friend. We see that friend has gotten friendly with the monkey boy we saw from earlier, and the episode cuts to black. Just like that, the penultimate episode ends. The episode was pretty fun. Weiss's out-of-pocket rants included. I think I sang my praises about Penny enough earlier, and I will continue to react accordingly whenever she's on screen. Still, not a lot of this episode felt wasted, if any at all. Pretty well rounded, even with the jank. High A tier. Volume 1, Episode 10, Pokemon Black and White. We reach the end of Season 1, picking up right where Episode 9 ended with Blake's conversation with Sun, voiced by the one and only Rage Quit Michael Jones. There are some voice actors in the show that could give a bit more effort, I'd say, but I think Michael fits Sun really well. He definitely gets better as time goes on, but that'll be true for anything with enough work. Anyway, while I was busy ranting about that, Blake was busy exposition dropping about how she used to be in the White Fang, which we deduced from the last episode's explosion to be true. The lore dump tells us that Blake had been in the White Fang from the start, watching as the movement went from a peaceful push for equality to a violent group of extremists, using crime to push towards their goal, which is precisely why Blake left. Back with Team RWBY, or I guess Team RWBY.
Hey guys, what are you up to?
Team RWBY it is. Penny, my goat, makes the astute observation that Blake is indeed a cat, which somehow the people who sleep in the same room and train together every day didn't notice for months. Surely she had to spit up a hairball or piss in the bed at least once since they've lived together. Okay, back to the Payday 2 Shadow Raid. Blake makes a rational decision when overseeing a deal with the White Fang, jumping down and putting a blade to the neck of our Clockwork Orange boy Torchwick, revealing herself to the White Fang as being one of them. But before she can get any answers, the animation budget kicks in. This is what was Monty's bread and butter. These action-packed scenes of showing off what his talents truly were. Even with how the show looks in most cases, when these scenes kick off, you realize that it was truly a passion project. We get our best looks yet at Blake, Penny, and Sun's fighting styles, and none are even remotely similar to each other. But no matter how many cases of manslaughter Penny will be charged with, Roman just barely manages to get away, leaving them to fight another day. The group is finally brought back together, and after 12 hours, Weiss decides that she'll only be racist to other Faunas, and that Blake is the lone exception to the rule because they're teammates. Penny is mysteriously collected and driven away from the group before they could realize. And as Ozpin creepily spies on a group of high schoolers, Volume 1 comes to an end. Oh wait, no it doesn't, because there's an after-credits scene of just who Torchwick is doing business with, and we finally get a look at the shrouded figure that was at the end of the first episode. The final 2 episodes of Volume 1 seem to have a lot more tense and serious scenes rather than the comedy from earlier in the season, which is to be expected, but it works much better when the series has its characters taken seriously instead of played for laughs. The comedy in RWBY can be a bit hit or miss for me, but the story was strong once it finally got going. It's a surprise to me just how short these episodes were, as Volumes 1 and 2 could pretty much be binged in a single sitting without even competing with the lengths of some feature-length movies. Volume 1 finishes without an S-tier ranking, as this too will find itself with a high A ranking. This is, as you can imagine, the first video in a series of reviews for the entirety of RWBY. Whether or not we catch up before the next volume comes out, pigs may fly before we even get close. But for now, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Special shout out to Vimigo, who became the first channel member. Be sure to join the channel members to get access to videos a few days early, as well as receiving a special shout out at the end of future videos. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.